Alexander earned the epithet, the Great, due to his unparalleled success as a military commander. He never lost a battle, despite typically being outnumbered. This success was attributed to his use of terrain, phalanx and cavalry tactics, bold strategies, and the fierce loyalty of his troops. The Macedonian phalanx, armed with the sarissa, a spear 6 meters long, was developed and perfected by his father, Philip II, through rigorous training, and Alexander used its speed and maneuverability to great effect against larger but less organized Persian forces. Recognizing the potential for disunity among his diverse army, Alexander maintained unity by being personally involved in battle, embodying the role of a Macedonian king. In his first battle in Asia, at Granicus, Alexander commanded a small force against a much larger Persian force. By placing the phalanx at the center and positioning cavalry and archers on the wings, Alexander ensured that his line matched the length of the Persian cavalry line. This strategic deployment prevented his forces from being outflanked, while his phalanx held a considerable advantage over the Persian scimitars and javelins. The Macedonian losses were minimal compared to those of the Persians. At Issus in 333 BC, during his first direct confrontation with Darius, Alexander used a similar deployment. Once again, the central phalanx pushed through, and Alexander personally led the charge, routing the opposing army. In the decisive encounter with Darius at Gaugamela, Darius equipped his chariots with scythes to break up the phalanx and armed his cavalry with pikes. Alexander responded by arranging a double phalanx, with the center advancing at an angle. His strategy succeeded in breaking Darius's center, causing the Persian king to flee once more. When faced with opponents who used unfamiliar fighting techniques, Alexander adapted his forces accordingly. In Bactria and Sogdiana, he employed javelin throwers and archers to prevent outflanking movements while massing his cavalry at the center. In India, when confronted by Porus's elephant corps, the Macedonians opened their ranks to envelop the elephants and used their sarissas to strike upwards and dislodge the elephants' handlers. During his lifetime, Alexander carefully managed his image by commissioning works from famous artists of the time, including sculptures by Lysippos, paintings by Apelles, and gem engravings by Pyrgotiles. Ancient authors noted that Alexander was so pleased with the portraits created by Lysippos that he allegedly forbade other sculptors from crafting his image. Although scholars today find this claim dubious, Lysippos' sculpture is still thought to be the most faithful depiction, known for its naturalism as opposed to the stiffer, more static poses of other works. According to Plutarch, Lysippos accurately captured the unique tilt of Alexander's neck and the melting glance of his eyes, features that many of Alexander's successors and friends later tried to imitate. However, Apelles, in painting Alexander as the wielder of the thunderbolt, made his complexion too dark and swarthy, whereas Alexander was said to have a fair complexion that turned ruddy, especially on his chest and face. There was a belief that a pleasant fragrance exhaled from Alexander's skin, filling his garments with a distinctive scent, a detail that historians attribute to the ancient Greek belief that pleasant scents were characteristic of gods and heroes. Coins and the Alexander mosaic portray Alexander with a straight nose, a slightly protruding jaw, full lips, and eyes deep set beneath a strongly pronounced forehead. He is also depicted with a slight upward tilt of his head to the left. The ancient historian Aelian describes Alexander's hair color as xanthine, which could mean yellowish, brownish, or reddish. Some claim that Alexander had one blue eye and one brown eye, referring to the fictional Alexander romance. However, reconstructions based on remaining traces of paint on his sarcophagus indicate that he was depicted with brown eyes and chestnut-brown hair. Alexander's personality was shaped by the influence of his parents. His father, Philip II, was likely his most immediate and influential role model, as Alexander watched him campaign every year, winning victory after victory while ignoring severe wounds. This relationship forged the competitive side of Alexander's personality, leading him to a need to outdo his father. Although Alexander worried that his father would leave him no great or brilliant achievement to be displayed to the world, he also downplayed Philip's achievements to his companions. His mother, Olympia, encouraged his ambitions and instilled in him a sense of destiny, believing it was his fate to conquer the Persian Empire. Plutarch describes Alexander as having a violent temper and an impulsive nature, which could influence his decision-making. Despite his stubbornness and resistance to his father's orders, Alexander was open to reasoned debate. He had a calmer side, perceptive, logical, and calculating. He had a great desire for knowledge, a love for philosophy, and was an avid reader, traits that were likely nurtured by Aristotle's tutelage. His intelligence and rationality were demonstrated by his success as a general. Although he showed great self-restraint in pleasures of the body, he lacked self-control with alcohol. Alexander was erudite and patronized both the arts and sciences. Unlike his father, he had little interest in sports, seeking only the Homeric ideals of honor and glory. His charisma and force of personality made him a great leader, a unique ability that none of his generals could replicate after his death. During his final years, he began to exhibit signs of megalomania and paranoia. His extraordinary achievements, combined with his own sense of destiny and the flattery of his companions, likely contributed to these traits. He appeared to believe himself a deity, a belief reinforced by his mother and confirmed by the oracle of Ammonius at Siwa. Alexander adopted elements of Persian dress and customs at court, notably proskynesis, to secure the support of the Iranian upper classes. However, this practice was disapproved of by the Macedonians, costing him the sympathies of many of his countrymen. Despite this, Alexander was a pragmatic ruler who understood the difficulties of ruling culturally disparate peoples, many of whom lived in societies where the king was treated as divine. Thus, his behavior may have been a practical attempt at strengthening his rule and keeping his empire together. Alexander married 3 times: Roxana, daughter of the Sogdian nobleman Oxyartes of Bactria, out of love, and the Persian princesses Statira and Perisitis, for political reasons. He had 2 sons, Alexander IV of Macedon by Roxana and possibly Heracles of Macedon from his mistress Barsine. He also had a close relationship with his friend, general, and bodyguard Hephaestion, whose death devastated Alexander and may have contributed to his declining health and mental state during his final months. Alexander's sexuality has been the subject of speculation and controversy. The Roman writer Athenæus claims that Alexander was excessively keen on boys, and that he publicly kissed the eunuch Bagoas. While some modern historians believe that Alexander's relationship with Hephaestion was sexual, ancient sources do not explicitly describe it as such. Alexander is also described as having strong friendships with women, including Ada of Caria and Darius's mother Sisygambes.